What's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. We got a great one today. Patriots have made their decision starting quarterback. Brian Hoyer will join us to give his insight on how the whole process played out, why Brissett's the right answer, and what Drake Maye has to do to dislodge Jacoby Brissett. So, without any further ado, let's hear from Jerod Mayo in his statement Thursday morning.
Yeah, good morning, friends. Just like I told you guys a few days ago, there was it's a process as far as selecting who the starting quarterback is. We have decided, or I have decided, that Jacoby Brissett will be our starting quarterback this season. Now, in saying that, as an organization, we're 100% behind Jacoby. There is no, you got a guy right here, you got a guy right there. We're 100% behind Jacoby. And I had an opportunity to talk to Drake. I had an opportunity to talk to Jacoby separately and also together. And I feel like we're all on the same page from an organizational perspective. Yeah, there are a lot of factors that led to this choice. I think, the hard part is thinking in the short term and the long term at the same time. As an organization, though, we feel like Jacoby gives us our best chance to win right now. I don't want to get into hypotheticals. We can't go into the season saying, well, he's going to go X amount of weeks. Like, look, as long as Jacoby's going out there performing the way that we all have confidence in him doing, he'll be our quarterback this season.
This is the outcome that everybody who's been paying close enough attention could see was coming. So this was too complicated by half. And for that, the Patriots and Jerod Mayo, as the tip of the spear, deserve some second guessing. What this team wants to do right now is ooze competency in the wake of Bill Belichick's departure. Yeah, maybe Bill rammed the car into the overpass a few times the last couple of years, but he also oozed competency by sometimes saying less. And in this instance, the Patriots had a very easy party line that they could have accepted throughout. Jacoby's a starter. It's a competition. We expect Drake Maye to compete and push Jacoby as hard as he can because you never know. But you never had to get into if he outplays Jacoby, the best player will play. Or he outplayed Jacoby, yet the body of work indicates that we want to go with someone else. It muddied the waters. And it required a hell of a lot more breadcrumb chasing in terms of inferring what was meant by different statements than was necessary. Because there was never any way that anybody but Jacoby Brissett was going to start the season. Alex Van Pelt said it every time he had an opportunity to, and really, when pressed, Jerod Mayo did as well. So let's get Brian Hoyer in here to talk about the decision made and how he would have done it differently, if at all. Well, here's the fellas now. Phil Perry, Brian Hoyer. Let's get right to it. Do you believe the Patriots made this process way harder than they needed to, Brian?
Harder. I think what is perceived to the media sometimes isn't always the same internally, right? And so I think, a case was made because Drake came along probably quicker than people thought. He had good showings in the preseason game. I think, maybe we sit out from the outside and say, oh, they made it harder, but maybe internally they knew all along what it was. And I think part of it too, I don't think they wanted to come in and just say, Drake, you got a redshirt year. So to kind of say some comments out in the media and say, look, it's a competition and Jacoby's a veteran, but it's also they want him to compete and coming in and basically saying, like, listen, you're sitting this year, maybe that doesn't get Drake to where you need him to be, because the reality is now he's the backup. One snap away and he's playing anyway. So I think I think there's sometimes gamesmanship with how you're addressing it in the media, and also how that's going to affect your players. And I think maybe they wanted to push back on the narrative that it was just Jacoby's job because they wanted to see how Drake responded, and I would say he responded well.
Phil, to me, the bigger picture is it's their first year too, and if they don't ooze competency, as I said, and it seems indecisive, even though there might be a method to the madness, it can undercut that early first impression that you make. He's going to have plenty of time, Jerod Mayo, Elliot Wolf, and the Patriots brass, to undo it. But the method to the madness was hard to envision at times, was it not?
And so the question sure, yes. And I agree with Brian. I think this is one of those instances where we're seeing how Jerod Mayo wants to use his platform as a head coach. And I think part of that is going to be to send messages to his players. And so I think when you're harping on competition, doesn't matter what the situation is, best player is going to play. That is, in my opinion, in some ways, to get Drake Maye to raise his level. And maybe it's in some ways for Jacoby Brissett too. Hey, this isn't a given, Jacoby. You're going to have to fight and compete for this thing every single day. And he's a professional, and Jerod knows that. And so I'm not sure how much prodding he needed. But I think primarily for the rookie, yes, that's part of the reason why you send that message. But the message is sent to us, right, Tom? And it's sent to fans. And I think the question is, how much do you care about how we interpret those messages? Because if you don't, this is sort of water off a duck's back if you're Jerod
But
Mayo.
on the other hand, too, it's an entertainment business, and post-bill, you want to lose competency, you have to be aware of where you are. So I think it was a misstep.
For whom?
For whom? It's an entertainment business for the crafts, and they need to have their new leadership ooze competency, decisiveness. And I think that the outgrowth of it, and it'll fade quickly, the outgrowth of the last month or so was some mixed messaging. And I think we could all agree that the mixed messaging that we processed in the media then moved on to the fans, and was because we have all our time to fill, and the two radio stations have their time to fill, and the national media has its time to fill. We're going to discuss the process of doing it and whether it was a wily move or a confused move. As I said earlier this week, watching the sausage get made with the decision was kind of hard to watch at times when you knew what the decision ultimately would be. I do want to grab this Jerod Mayo quote on something that Phil reported a bit back, and then Jerod mentioned it about Drake Maye being less deferential to Jacoby Brissett, and that being part of the reason they wanted to promote, hey, get after it, kid.
I think early on he was trying to defer and just be a good teammate. Now he's competing to be the starting quarterback. He's really kind of ramped up his preparation and production on the field. Mayo added in the same interview, we're going to stick to the developmental plan. It may not be a popular plan, but we're doing what we think is right for the organization, not only in the near term, but also in the long term.
Brian, all that said, is this the right choice? Jacoby Brissett becomes your starter for the 2024 Patriots.
I mean, 100% I agree with it. I think, I saw what you said the other day, like nothing bad can happen with Drake Maye starting as the backup this year, right? Nothing back in his development can really happen. And he can sit there and watch Jacoby, who's, played a lot of football, and learn from him, in-game operation. I know there's been a few preseason games, but those aren't real games. It's like, so-and-so is only playing for a few series and then you're rotating out. And that first game is always long because no one's played four full quarters. So I think, there's a lot to be learned by sitting back there and watching. And the one point I wanted to make is I think we'd all agree, on who the best quarterback in the NFL is right now. And guess what? He didn't start his first game until the last game of his rookie year. Okay. And then a few other guys who were high draft picks who were probably right behind Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and they weren't week one starters either. I mean, Josh Allen took over for Nathan Peterman basically because Nathan Peterman had one of the worst games in quarterback history, and Justin Herbert took over for Tyrod Taylor because his lung was punctured by the doctor giving him a shot. So I don't think, look, I know he's going to be compared to the two guys taken ahead of him, but everybody knew those guys were the day one starter as soon as they were drafted. And I think the Patriots taking the approach that they originally planned and having, Jacoby be the starter, let Drake learn. And yeah, he's made progress. He had some great plays in the preseason, but does that justify to be the week one starter when you have a guy like Jacoby Brissett? I don't think so.
Brian, hard facts. What damage, literal damage, could be done in your experience as a quarterback by being too early at that position? We talked briefly on the phone last night, and you said it will look like there's 15 defenders out there to him.
Well, I think I touched on what a preseason game is as opposed to a regular season game. And in preseason, I've been in those meetings and they're like, hey, we have an agreement with so-and-so. There's not going to be any exotic blitzes tomorrow night. They're going to keep it simple, man coverage, a little cover two. Then you get to week one and teams are scheming you up schematically. A good defense with Cincinnati. You could get out there and people will be all over the place. I remember what the Dolphins tried to do to Mac Jones, his first game. we were playing Brian Flores, who came from the system. We thought we'd have a good grasp. He changed everything up. They were showing man coverage, dropping into cover two, and Mac handled it really well. And I think, to me, if a guy hasn't got a ton of reps at exotic looks and all that stuff, he could get out there week one and just be overwhelmed. So I think, to your point, nothing bad's going to come from him sitting and watching for, however long it is. Even if it's the whole year, nothing bad. I think the only thing, and this is what we talked about before, is Jerod not wanting Drake to be complacent with just being there. I think he's got to prepare each week like he's a starter. I did that every time I was the backup quarterback for 15 years. That's the mentality you have, because you are one play away. And so I don't think he can sit there and say, all right, I'll get ready when it's my time. No, your time is now. It's just Jacoby's the starter until he's not, and whenever that might be. And so you always have to prepare like you are, and along the way learn from a great, mentor in Jacoby Brissett.
And Tom, all the damage, that could be done would only be exacerbated by what I would say is a uncertain situation on the offensive line. And that might be putting it kindly. After David Andrews and Mike Owenu, I don't think anybody knows what they're going to get out there week one of the regular season. So you throw a rookie behind that, given all the things that Brian's already mentioned, and now you're not quite sure you're going to be getting the protection that you need. Maybe your eyes start to come down and you start to look at that rush. That is what gave him issues earlier in camp when he was behind backups. That still, in my opinion, would be the case if he was out there really early this season. So you want to try to get that line settled, get him to learn what he needs to learn and see things at the speed they're going to be played in the regular season. And then maybe later this year, you feel better about getting him out there.
Brian, can it screw a guy's all the work that they've done on his footwork, all the work they've done on his timing, all the work they've done on his drops? They could cause a regression if they put him out into the middle of the highway. Is that, that's kind of what I've said.
Getting hit over and over, that can cause a regression on anyone. I don't care if it's your first year, fourth year, eighth year, whenever that is. I mean, the reality is there's times where, I've seen myself, other quarterbacks I've been around, you get hit a bunch early in a game and maybe the protection settles down, but you're in your mind, you're thinking, man, my guys aren't blocking them very well. I got to get the ball out quick. I've seen it happen to a lot of different people. And so for a rookie, you go out there, you take some shots, is that in the back of his mind as he's going? Maybe that's the case. I think, like Phil said, that could really, set you back. I think also, not to reference Mac Jones again, but we all saw how great he did as a rookie, and then a bad situation the next year set him back. And then if you look at this season, he's arguably the best quarterback in the preseason. I know we're saying it's the preseason, but I think people are saying like, oh, there's Mac Jones that we remember from his rookie year. So, that's 2 years of damage that he had to get through to get back to be playing the way he's playing. And not to say it's insurmountable, but I think if you can foster the environment for your young quarterback with a veteran around like Jacoby Brissett, why would you push that?
I just look at it too. The curious thing for me, and Brian, you just mentioned it, you've had a lot of experience preparing to be the guy who's just one snap away. How much preparation are you even allowed to do when you're not the starter? And that to me is the fascinating thing about how they handled Drake Maye starting now. We saw them in training camp. He got a lot of reps. Now they were reps with the twos, but in terms of volume, the volume was there. I'm curious because we haven't really seen it. I know Jimmy Garoppolo was here. He's a second round pick, but when you're really trying to develop a young quarterback, can you do that on the practice field in the regular season if the guy's not the starter?
It's tough. There's only so many reps to go around. For me, so many different scenarios. Being the backup to Tom, I ended up getting a lot of reps because at that point in his career, I'm talking about my second stint here, he didn't need as many reps as he needed back in the day when I was here. But when Mac Jones was the quarterback, he took every rep. And so I'm assuming, with Jacoby, sometimes it's a 10-play period, sometimes it's a 12-play period. Maybe Jacoby's getting 10 and Drake's getting 2. Maybe Jacoby's getting 8 and Drake's getting 4. It depends on the health of your quarterback and what he really needs. But at this point now, you're trying to win football games. So Jacoby should take every rep that he thinks he needs. And, I thought we always did a good job. We had like these basic periods. It was kind of for young guys who weren't getting a ton of reps. Maybe they were doing a bunch of scout team, but at the end of practice each day, they were going to get a ton of reps running our own plays. And so maybe they find a way to get Drake extra reps at the end of the day with a bunch of young players that maybe, even though they're not the starter, they're the plays that are installed for that week. So he's getting extra looks instead of just sitting back there and going through them in his head. And so I think you have to be creative, with that, as far as, you don't want him to regress now that he's going to start getting less reps.
Can you make the case when you're running the scout team? Is that possible to do?
You're practicing someone else's offense. I mean,
yeah, but just looking like a playmaker, I suppose, or
yeah, I mean, to me, it was always fun because it was like, all right, who are we playing? Okay, so this week we're playing the Bengals. All right, Joe Burrow, pretty much a drop back quarterback. I'm not going to try to do a ton of scrambling. I'm going to see the card. I'm going to read the play, maybe compare it to a play that's similar that we have and run it that way. The weeks that I was playing against the Chiefs were always the most fun because it was like, I can do whatever I want. I've literally attempted behind the back passes as a scout team quarterback with Patrick Mahomes. And I told him that last year. I said, it's always my favorite week. And I said, I know one day you'll attempt it in a game. And sure enough, this year in the preseason.
Oh, he's a soothsayer, a visionary.
When you're a scout team, you can learn a lot of things. I saw Aaron Rodgers once say, like, I learned what I could do and what I couldn't do. I try, can I fit it in this hole? Can I, do a no look pass? Can I, move the safety this way? So there's a lot to experiment with, but I think also, getting Drake as many reps with their own system, whether that's extra practice, whatever it might be. I mean, I was in Las Vegas last year. Jimmy was a starter. I was the backup. Aiden O'Connell was a third string quarterback. And every day after practice, he would walk with whatever rookies and one of our quality control coaches, and he would go through every rep of practice on his own. So maybe that's something Drake has to do to stay ready. And that paid off for Aiden in the end because he was able to take over and do pretty well when his name was called.
It's a really good comp. I mean, not obviously you got to go third overall pick, and Aiden O'Connell was not the third overall pick, but just in terms of being a rookie and being relegated. I mean, Drake's been relegated. He's the most important player in the franchise, quite arguably, most likely, and he's been relegated a bit to a support role. Are you at all surprised? And Phil, I'm going to ask you the same thing. Are you at all surprised by the degree of development that Drake Maye has enjoyed? And is it a little bit overblown? I mean, Chris Collinsworth, God bless him, went bananas the other day, but it was still, it wasn't, a Rodgers Hail Mary hitting the scoreboard. It was a nice throw, but have you been surprised? And is it an appropriate level of enthusiasm?
I would just say, to start, like, I'm not surprised that he has ended up where he's ended up. I guess what I would say is I'm surprised he ended up based on where his first couple of weeks of training camp were.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all along through those first couple of weeks, as he was maybe having some up and down days, I was somebody who was saying, even on the quote unquote down days, I didn't think they were as bad as some other people did. And I came in to this entire process with a very high opinion of Drake Maye. And so I thought he was further along than a lot of people did. That, I know there was analysis out there. Boy, he needs to be on the Jordan Love plan, and you got to sit him for 3 years before he's ready to play. That's how raw this guy is. I never saw it that way. I'm not a quarterback expert, but I remember Brian sitting down with us pre-draft and saying that the footwork's not as much a mess as maybe some people are making it out to be, and it's relatively easily fixed. So, I think all of that has influenced me personally. The overblown question is a good one, and I want to ask Brian how he feels about what he saw from Drake Maye the other day, because I do think there were things where maybe he got himself into trouble where he didn't really have to, or was kind of walking up into pressure and things of that nature. So I'm curious where Brian sees him in his development right now after Sunday night, the last time we got a chance to see him.
Well, I think being on this side of it now, I think any glimpse of a great play is a little bit more elevated than if Jacoby, I mean, the play that I think Osborne dropped, that Jacoby threw the ball, and I didn't hear anyone talking about that because the play wasn't completed, but that was an incredible throw. And it was like, then he got, hit pretty hard a few plays after that, and he was done for the night. But I thought Jacoby came out and played really well in that first drive. And if KJ Osborne makes that catch and they go down and score a touchdown, I mean, does it even become as much of a talking point as what we're doing right now? Mm-hmm. Now, with that said, two plays that really stand out in my mind about, Drake and his preseason, the one where he threw a post and it was dropped. I mean, moving up in the pocket, throwing a great ball. And, the other night, obviously scrambling for a first down, a great play action pass and throwing, the crossing route to Polk. And then, the touchdown pass, I mean, a lot of guys can throw that touchdown pass. It's just you're throwing it out and Kevin Harris makes a play. And so I think sometimes if you want to talk about overblown,
Mhm.
yeah, he made some great plays, but ultimately, is that going to sway your decision over a guy who's started 50 plus games in the NFL, who you signed with the intention of being the starter anyways? I think that's where sometimes, the hype starts, perception becomes reality. And Jacoby, didn't have great performance in the preseason, but that doesn't negate what he's done in his career and what know he's capable of doing. And I think, sometimes in the media and the fans, they want to see the young guy, the one that's drafted high, as fast as possible. But in reality, that maybe that's not what's best for him. And I would agree. I think him sitting, learning, and watching for a little bit and continuing to grow because he has made great improvements is probably his best case scenario.
And Jacoby's confidence or mood be damaged and altered, and his performance as a byproduct by this "get him out of there, we want to see the kid" mentality?
We're all human. I mean, I know, we sit there and watch these guys and I've been out there and people think, oh, deal with the pressure, deal with all that stuff. Something that I went through in Cleveland.
Yep.
And Johnny Manziel was not as highly drafted as Drake, but his persona was way bigger. And it kind of was a similar situation. Like I kind of knew I was the starter the whole time, but I think for the media and for the fans' perspective, the Browns never wanted to announce that because it was like, we got a good thing going. People are paying attention to us. Let's drag it out. And as the starter, it just becomes like exhausting. Like I know I'm the starter. I'm the starter. What are we waiting for? And then it was like every game they were waiting for me to fail so that they could get him into play. And so that wears on you without a doubt. And I could have done a better job, ignoring and blocking out the noise. And, as the signs say, when you leave the door in New England, but, 15 weeks in of dealing with it and everybody around you is asking like, hey, what's the deal? Are you going to keep starting or, all these things. So I know Jacoby, he's very, mentally tough. He's been through a lot of different situations, similar to me. He's kind of seen it all. And on top of that, I know he's been a great mentor to Drake all along. And so now it becomes, it's defined. Jacoby's the starter and they're going to support each other. I saw Jacoby talk about it today. He's like, the competition doesn't end, but my focus now is on winning football games for this team. And I think they'll all do what's best for the team to kind of get that done.
I think it's got to be nice for Jerod Mayo to some degree, Tom, in that as much back and forth as there seemed to be and as much of a question as it was in some people's minds, I haven't heard a whole lot of people who either follow the team very closely as reporters or who analyze it and know what they're talking about, people like Brian. I'm not sure I've heard a single person say that outside of Louis Riddick. I think Louis Riddick is the only one who I saw a tweet the other day who said Drake Maye has to start. I think that is another nice byproduct for Mayo is that there's not this decision, which I believe him when he says he lost sleep over the decision. Like I think it probably weighed on him quite a bit first time as a head coach, but I don't think he's going to get a whole lot of pushback for this particular call.
No. And I think the locker room, we talked about this last night. Sorry, I just bit something on my.
Oh, God.
Hope that wasn't earwax. This is something Phil and I discussed last night a little bit about the locker room. I don't think, look, there is no defending the decision to go to Jacoby Brissett. It was so simple. The guy's an 8-year veteran. They brought him in for a year. He's been a starter. He's won games. He knows what the hell's going on. He wasn't a disaster in training camp. He had a bad throw in one preseason game that got picked off. That's okay. No one in the locker room is going to take up torches and pitchforks over this. The only way the locker room would ever start to grumble is if everybody and his mother can tell after 3 or 4 weeks it's not working. Then guys start to opine, maybe quietly among themselves. But I just don't think that this is a decision that really anybody in the locker room or nationally, except for Louis Riddick, thinks doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think all along, I think everybody kind of assumed that this is what it would be, right? And I think, along the way, as you said, it kind of got navigated differently than, where it got to, how we got here. But I don't think anyone in that locker room is going to say, man, maybe we should have played Drake. I think they all assumed Jacoby would be the quarterback. I think you look at, you talk to a lot of these players, they call him one of the leaders on the team, the leader of the offense, a coach on the field. No one's going to feel uncomfortable. If anything, they're happy it's settled now, so you can move
Right.
on and as we say, on to Cincinnati. So
Mhm.
I don't think there's sometimes I think what happens on the outside is a little bit more chaotic than what's going on in the inside.
Brian, 2022, you were quarterback for the Patriots, backing up Mac. Mac got blown up against the Baltimore Ravens. That was during the period of time where there was a huge effort to throw the ball downfield and hold it too long. Eventually, he got drilled. He gets injured. You come in. You got blown up the next week in Green Bay. Really blown up.
Yep.
Concussed in a damaging fashion. And Bailey Zappi came in. This offensive line right now is at the very least really fucking distressing. I love dropping the F-bomb and making Phil.
I was not ready for that.
Me
Wow.
either.
That being the case, are the Patriots going to be held hostage by the offensive line? Do they have to approach it as if they are?
Well, I think you have to, if you're the coaching staff and you identify that that's a problem, then you have to figure out a way to game plan it to help those guys out that need the help the most. I mean, we talked about it a bunch, in the preseason. I always say you can always help tackles more than you can help interior linemen. And so to have David Andrews there as the anchor of the line is a huge, benefit that you're going into the season knowing, okay, the center's taken care of. We mentioned Mike Onwenu. Does he play guard? Does he play tackle? In my opinion, they're going to put the best five out there with whatever that combination is that they think it is. And then from that, you have to game plan. If you feel like your tackles need help, you better keep a tight end and help, block with tight end and tackle together to block better defensive ends. You better chip the defensive ends. You better, give a presence of a receiver. Maybe he's going to crack down. I mean, it all depends on who you're playing, and you got to go week in, week out and say, okay, what's the weakest part of the line and how can we how can we help those guys the most we can this week to get through this game? So
that whole exercise too, though, it just really straps the offensive coordinator from allowing himself to be himself.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that will help them is to run the ball well. Yeah. Because as I've witnessed playing in this system, if you can run the football well, you're not having a ton of drop back pass. And that's really, when you look at offensive line play in the NFL, when guys really struggle, it's drop back pass.
You mean 5 and 7 step?
Yeah, 5, 7 step drops when they know you're passing. The defensive ends are teeing off. Now, if you're running the ball and you're getting into 2nd and 5, 2nd and 3, and then all of a sudden you're running a play action pass, sometimes those defensive ends, they're not sure, am I in a pass rush mode or am I in a run stopping mode? And you kind of see them get caught off guard. And so the best thing, in my opinion, that the Patriots offense can do is run the ball really well and get these defensive ends, pass rushers off their heels. So the heat isn't just, they're not pinning their ears back and saying, we're just going to rush the quarterback because it's 2nd and 9 and they're not going to run the ball again. So I think staying ahead of downs and staying in 3rd and short where your 3rd down plays can be converted and not, the ball's not being held. And along the way, I remember with Josh, if we were playing a really, premier defensive end, we were going to affect him some way in the first 10 plays of the game, one way or the other. We were going to run the ball at him. We were going to crack him. We were going to chip him. We were going to double team him in a run play and let him know, like, hey, we know who you are and we got a plan for you all day. And so, there's always that famous clip, I think, of Joey Bosa, complaining about Tom getting the ball out quick. Like, you got to be conscious of that stuff. And I know Tom was all the time. And so, that's up for, Alex Van Pelt and Jacoby and say, hey, this is not a good matchup for us over here. How are we going to help this guy out, stay away from that player, whatever it might be. I think there's ways to do that.
If you could put your Jerod Mayo hat on, your Alex Van Pelt hat on, Brian, how significantly would the offensive line's performance impact your decision-making with Drake Maye? Like, if they can't run the ball and if they are underperforming, but we're also, midway through the season or so, and Drake Maye looks really damn good in practice.
Mhm.
Are you even considering playing him, or it's not until you guys figure out what you're doing up front is that kid going to step on the field?
Yeah, I think that's probably a huge part of the equation. And I think also it's to me when Jerod says Jacoby Brissett's the starter for this season, I think that says we're going to go with Jacoby as long as we can until it's not working out anymore. And like I said, that could be a whole season. I really, and I said this to Jacoby, I said, look, I played against this Patriots defense last year. It is tough. I said the goal for the Patriots offense this year should be eliminate turnovers, don't turn the ball over, don't give the other team more chances than you're going to have, run the ball really well, and score 17 points a game. And I know everyone's saying, no, they're picked to win 4 games this year. If you have that formula with that defense, they will surprise a lot of people, and you'll go with Jacoby as long as that formula is working. So I really, I'm not big into predictions. I'm straight out of playing, and that was the one big thing, never make any predictions. But I really see, the defense is strong. I know a lot was made about trading Judon, but the reality, like I played that defense and they didn't have Judon or Gonzalez. And that was a tough, schematically, the back end between Duggar and Peppers, they play so well together. You have Gonzalez back. And it's kind of a pass rush by, counsel, I guess. You got Keon White, you have Uche, a bunch of other people.
Yeah, Dietrich.
Dietrich,
They bring guys to the linebacker level.
Yeah, and so and they make it hard on offenses. So, if I'm Jerod and I'm Alex Van Pelt, I'm saying all we have to do is not turn the ball over, try to score 17 points a game, some way, some fashion, whether that's running the ball, play action passes, whatever it might be. Our defense can score. I mean, you look back to the Patriots defense last year. I mean, they scored more touchdowns than the offense did at points. So if you go with that formula, I think the Patriots will be a lot more successful than people think.
They did that in 2022 when you were there as well. Duggar was a machine,
right,
in terms of scoring.
Right.
The irony to me about this, and we're going to get probably Phil and I into predictions a little bit more next week and forecasting, but the main reason I think the Patriots are going to be better than people think is they don't understand how friggin' bad they were last year. There's still a detachment from how literally horrible the team played. Beginning, middle, end, for different reasons at each juncture.
Mm-hmm.
But Phil, I still don't think that people understand that this is a team that was starting Bailey Zappi at the end of the year, that in the final game of the season, they had 6 first downs, that they kind of dumbed into a win at Denver, I think. They beat Mitch Trubisky. It was a bad team. It was left in a bad situation. And the irony in all this is we're having this discussion now at this time last year, the Brissett Maye discussion. At this time last year, Bill had cut every quarterback except for one guy that he couldn't stand anymore. So the team is much better off already than it was in August of 2022. Phil, am I high?
You're not. No, there's no doubt about it.
2023.
And that was sort of, the sense that I got talking to players. This was yesterday before the quarterback announcement had been made to them or to us, trying to go around to guys that were with the team last year and talking to them about how, hey, we understood at the time last year, the quarterback decision impacted guys and how poorly the offense was performing impacted every phase of the locker room because it was impacting their ability to do their jobs well. That's how bad it was offensively. And it really felt like the offense wasn't holding up its end. And so I went around and tried to ask guys, do you have a preference at quarterback? Does it matter to you when you are told who the guy is going to be? If it's not what you were hoping for, how is that going to make you feel? And basically what I was told was it doesn't matter as long as the team's not turning it over. That was such a factor last year. Again, people telling me yesterday, can we just end our drives and kicks? As long as we can end our drives and kicks, whether it's a punt, a field goal, or an extra point, like that's going to be okay with me. That's going to allow me to go do my job and everything's going to be okay. So the bar has been set extremely low based on how things went last year. And I think Jacoby Brissett is going to be able to clear that bar based on where it has been set.
Brian, if I said Jacoby Brissett's going to go, I'm not saying when he's going to get pulled, but if he played the whole season, Jacoby Brissett would throw for
Here we go.
64% completion rate. It's going to take 42 sacks, take a lot of abuse back there, but still not over 50. He's going to throw for 3,300 yards with 21 touchdowns and 11 picks.
I would take that in a heartbeat. I'd say the Patriots win at least 8 games if he does that.
All right, those are the barometers. Brian Hoyer.
Oh, you're reading off something. What were you reading? Is that something? Is those?
No, I just had the answers up in the air. No, I did no.
That's just his beautiful mind, Brian.
That's right. I just go it's out of body. Yeah, that's my insanely absurd, highly accurate prediction for today. Brian, thank you so much for taking the time. Where can people find you when the season begins? I think you're going to be with us a little bit, but where else?
So definitely just working at NBC Sports Boston on Wednesdays, and we're doing a show there mainly focused on offense and quarterbacks. I'm doing Sirius XM radio hosting on Thursday mornings with Solomon Wilcott, someone I've known for a long time, and got a little special podcast in the works. Not ready to announce it yet, but I think something could be coming out next week, and I think Patriots fans will really love it.
Good deal. Phil, he's great, huh? Thank you for telling me how great he was.
I'm excited. I just hope that I have the opportunity to work with you. You're such a busy man. I just want to be able to work with you at some point this year. Okay. Can you carve out a little time for me and Tom?
Thanks to Karen Garegian too, Brian. I'm standing there. I'm like, who am I going to talk to? It's like, where am I? She goes, why don't you get Brian Hoyer? He's been unbelievable.
Yeah.
I said, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be too busy. Never too busy.
Never too busy. I'm trying to be less busy. My first year where I'm, not in training camp playing. I got to go to my son's football games. I got family duties too. So
I know, but squeeze us in when you can. Thank you so much for the insight. Really great stuff today. Brian Hoyer, everybody. Thank you.
Oh yeah. The golf
Thanks,
clap.
guys.
Golf clap.